Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker was released in 2019 and was directed by, once again, J.J. Abrams, and is the finale of the Skywalker Saga. The story is about, oh boy, Rey has to stop the main villain Snoke. Going into this film, I didn't really know what to expect. I was going in with a fresh, open mind. Like the other movies in this series, I was requested once again by Marvel Fanboy 2004 to do this one. And then after this, I'll be getting on to the prequel trilogy. The Rise of Skywalker seems to have a very divisive attitude. There's people that absolutely love it like Lambo Rock Strikes Back, but then there's people that absolutely hate it. When the critics got around to it, it didn't really get the best reviews. It has a 51% on Rotten Tomatoes. And after watching the movie, I actually agree with that percent. Yes, this film is mediocre. This film is really mediocre. The problem with this film for me is the story. It is incredibly lackluster. It is such a poor conclusion, and a flat conclusion to a long-going franchise since 1978. I mean, for something like Star Wars, you'd think for a franchise like that that's been beloved by many people, you'd think they'd go out with a bit of a bigger bang, don't you? Well, no. To me, this film is just flat. The story is just so bland and uninteresting. I didn't care. It's a shallow story. It doesn't have a story. It's really flat. I couldn't even summarize it correctly. It is such a bland story that is as bland as paper. It is not a good conclusion. It is such a weak conclusion. And everything about it just doesn't feel conclusive. The ending quote made me laugh due to how stupid it was. And while I guess the last few minutes were nice, it just doesn't feel like that grand spanking conclusion where you want it to go out on a bang. Good examples being How to Train Your Dragon 3 or Avengers Endgame. These conclusions have more emotional, satisfying endings, and they actually go out with a bang. Okay, Dragon 3 has a more open-ended conclusion, but Endgame has a flat-out conclusion, like they went out with a bang. This one just goes so poor and just flat. And I know this is a bit of a weird comparison, but even TV show finales like, say, the Avatar The Last Airbender finale or the Power Rangers Dino Thunder finale, at least with them you can tell they're trying to wrap everything up. With this film, it just doesn't feel like a wrap-up. It just feels like a regular sequel, just titled and promised as the conclusion. And I just think it's weak. I just think it's poor. I guess the acting is still pretty good. It's gotten better throughout this trilogy. And the effects are pretty decent as well. The action sequences are actually pretty damn good. If there's one thing I have to praise about these movies, the action sequences I think are actually spectacular. However, I did feel the final fight was a little... I don't know, is it just me or did the final battle feel so similar to the Return of the Jedi's final battle? It just felt so similar, I think. It was just a very similar climax. But that's not a bad thing. The climax was pretty decent, I have to admit. The characters were just bland. Like, I didn't care for anyone in this film. Finn was bland, everyone was bland. Even the new characters were bland. Just, the characters were bland. Pure and simple. One of the things Last Jedi improved on was Rey by giving her more character development. But here, she's just bland and really uninteresting and nothing of a character, really. The main villain Snoke is an absolute joke and pathetic of a character. He's just nothing. And his payoff is just very far-fetched to me. I guess it's cool visually, but it just feels so far-fetched. Even Kylo Ren, I tried to like him, but he's just something felt off. And I just, as a result, I didn't like any characters in this film. They're not terrible, but they're just incredibly bland and lackluster. The soundtrack is decent, but it's nothing like outstanding. Overall, I'm at a midpoint with this film. I just think it's mediocre. And that's a shame, because I think for a long-going franchise like Star Wars deserved better. And this is just a very flat conclusion to go out on. I'm going to give Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker a 5 out of 10. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the sequel trilogy. And until then, guys, stay tuned for my next review, and then I will be doing the prequels and the 2 spin-offs. And until then, guys, skadoosh everyone and take care.